An industry on its knees. Yeah, it's not just Hollywood stars that are saying this. It's even former Paramount CEO. Believe it or not. Well, Paramount and 20th Century Fox CEO. In fact, he has specifically said Hollywood is doomed if the strike continues to Christmas, which does parrot very similar things from other individuals. Essentially, that if this was to go on one more month, everything's going to be delayed, disastrous consequences. It's a complete mess. So let's take a look at this. I haven't taken a look too deeply at these strikes here on my main channel. I have taken a look at these strikes in passing on my podcast, which you can find linked down below in the description box, Mistakes Reviews Live Archives. But, you and I both know this is an industry on its knees. We are well aware of this. It seems to be, by and large, Hollywood itself is in denial of this, or is looking to put on the bravado and the front that it is in, absolutely fine, no issues. No, there's problems here. So, there was a London Equity Actors Rally. Now, Equity is the UK arm of SAG, essentially, which is interesting that they're doing this because anyone striking from Equity is breaching contract and they can get sued, which is actually why the Alien series can continue at the moment, because they're using Equity actors and they're able to shoot around the SAG actors. But anyway, Screen Actors Guild of America, essentially second week of striking. Members of the UK's counterpart Equity, including Succession star Brian Cox, Hayley Atwell, and David Oyelowo, came out in solidarity in London's Leicester Square. Despite declaring unwavering solidarity with their American counterparts since the strike started, the UK anti-trade union law state that SAG-AFTRA members currently working under an Equity UK collective bargaining agreement should continue to report to work. It's illegal. They will literally get sued, believe it or not. So, yeah. But anyway, Equity General Secretary Paul Fleming told Deadline, "We are not going to have the UK used as a backdoor to undermine SAG-AFTRA's dispute." So, they're trying to strike as well, but I mean, they're not, because they can't, and they will get sued. And that's why a whole bunch of things are still continuing. And you had this tweet, Equity UK, last week when our brothers and sisters in SAG-AFTRA went on strike, we said we would stand in unwavering solidarity with them. Today our members made good on that promise. They kind of did, they kind of didn't. Let's get real here. But anyway, this is the interesting thing. So, there's an interview with Deadline at the Equity London rally. Brian Cox discussed the significance of residuals. Yeah, residuals are an issue, absolutely. It's mainly the AI thing. SAG is an excellent union, but in the US, we don't have a national health service. So what is important to SAG actors is health, and they need that. That's why they need their residuals, which makes perfect sense. Now, Hayley Atwell quoted research to Deadline and claimed that a shocking 87% of SAG-AFTRA members don't earn enough to qualify for health insurance. And that's because, by and large, 87% of the members of SAG are just your normal run-of-the-mill actors. They're just day players. They make up the bulk of SAG. There is an illusion that if you're seen on telly, then you're fine, but for most people, that is not the case. This is Hayley Atwell saying this. This is not an industry that is thriving. It is an industry on its knees. And then David Oyelowo said, I'm butchering that, says the gap between the haves and have-nots in our industry is widening at an alarming rate. The business has continued to evolve, and the means of remunerating the people who actually make the stuff isn't catching up with the evolution. And that is true. A lot of this stuff I can't really argue with. I'm not picking sides here. The AI argument, I think, is probably the best argument for everyone. I do think people should be able to earn a living wage. I think that's just pretty... Yeah, I mean, if you're doing lots and lots of work and you're not being able to survive, there's a problem, isn't there? Let's get real. But this is the interesting thing. So, the former Paramount CEO and 20th Century Fox CEO, Barry Diller, has also come out and said something very, very interesting. So, Barry Diller, who is the current chairman of IAC and Expedia and the former CEO of Paramount Pictures, as well as 20th Century Fox, warned, this is a guy that knows, if the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes continue to Christmas, Hollywood's doomed. It's done. So, Diller appeared on CBS's Face the Nation, where he was asked, what do you think the impact will be and how long will these strikes last? So he responded, well, the problem with this particular, all strikes get settled. The issue for this one is when, because you have almost a perfect storm here, which is you had COVID, which sent people home to watch streaming and television and killed theatres. Not really true. They're coming back, and it's just that the movie's shit. You've had the results of huge investments in streaming, which have produced all these losses for all these companies, which are now kind of retrenching. That is true. So at this point, this kind of perfect storm, it's okay if it gets settled in the next month, but I'll posit what happens if it doesn't, and there doesn't seem to be enough trust and energy to get it settled soon. So if it was to get settled within a month, perfect, no issues. He doesn't think it's going to, and this is the doom part. So he said, what will happen is, if in fact it doesn't get settled to Christmas or so, then next year there's not going to be many programs for anybody to watch. So you're going to see subscriptions get pulled, which is going to reduce the revenue of all these movie companies, television companies, the results of which is that there will be no programs. And at just the time the strike is settled, that you want to gear back up, there won't be enough money. So basically, they will write them. They're going to strike. You can look at it from two ways, right? The writers and the actors are going to strike themselves into bankruptcy, as well as the studios, because they're not negotiating quicker. So this actually will have devastating effects if it's not settled soon. And the problem with settlement in this case is there's no trust between the parties. There are existential issues. Obviously AI, which I think is just overhyped to death in terms of the worries that actors and writers are going to be replaced rather than assisted, which is what I think will happen. So this, look, I agree with the AI argument, to be fair. I don't think it's overhyped. And if it is overhyped, then just write it into a contract that it's not going to replace people. I mean, it's really simple, isn't it? If it's not an issue, just write it into the contract. But there's no trust, he reiterated. You have the actors union saying, how dare these 10 people who run these companies earn all this money and won't pay us? Well, if you look at it on the other side, the top 10 actors get paid more than the top 10 executives. I'm not saying either is right. Actually, everybody's probably overpaid at the top end. This guy doesn't mince his words. I love it. The one idea I had is to say, as a good faith measure, both the executives and the most paid actors should take a 25% pay cut to try and narrow the difference between those who get highly paid and those who don't. I think that makes perfect sense. No one needs to get paid $26 bloody million for a movie. I mean, that's just fucking insanity. He also added, the only other thing I would do, I would call for a September 1st deadline. There's a strike deadline. I think there should be a settlement deadline, because unless it happens by September 1st, the actions, and of course, who cares about Hollywood, who cares about it? But the truth is, this is a huge business, both domestically and for world export. This is true. It's one of the biggest exports of America. But these conditions will produce an absolute collapse of an entire industry. An absolute collapse. I love it. He knows his stuff. Again, an industry on its knees. An absolute collapse of an industry. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear any and all of your thoughts. So drop it down below. If you're new here, do hit subscribe. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye now.